Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. This is actually one of the stops on a hop which is being organised by Wow Embossing to celebrate their brand new July release, which, let me tell you, is absolutely packed with amazing new products. So today I'm going to be looking at one of the new trios, which is the Ice Crystals trio. So it's made up of these three colours here. So you've got pink ice, blue ice and white ice. And each of the powders is full of amazing crystal and glittery pieces. So you've got some bigger chunks of glitter and then some smaller ones as well, to make up a really beautiful kind of frosty effect when they're applied. So I thought I would show you today some different ways of swatching out your powders and basically making some glitter cardstock from them. So the first way that I'm doing this is by rolling a brayer into my embossing ink pad and then applying that directly to a piece of card. And once I've fully covered my cardstock piece, I'm going to apply my powder. So what I've done is I've given it a good shake to make sure that some of those heavier particles, so the bigger glittery pieces, they're not all sunk to the bottom. So shaking it up lets them come up to the top and you get a good mix of all of the pieces making up the embossing glitter on your card. So I've just tapped the jar to let some of those chunky pieces out first. And once I've got a good spread of them across my cardstock, then I'm just going to pour the remainder of the embossing glitter all over that panel. So I'm just heat setting it now with my heat gun on the highest setting, and you can see the transformation and you can see all of that beautiful glitter detail coming out. So that's our first panel done. So I'm going to show you a second method of making some glitter cardstock, and that is by pressing your ink pad directly onto your cardstock. Or you can do what I sometimes do, which is put the ink pad on the table and press the cardstock into the ink pad. Either way works absolutely fine. So I'm shaking up my embossing glitter again to get those chunky bits of glitter to the top, tapping them across my cardstock to make sure I get a good even coverage, and then applying the rest of the glitter powder across the panel just as I did before. So once I've done this, I'm going to pick up my panel and I'm just going to tilt it to the left and right to make sure that I've got good coverage all over it before I start to heat set. And don't worry, I know it looks like a lot of powder has been used, but really it's such a small amount is actually needed to create a whole panel like this, and you can pour the rest of it directly back into your jar to use for future projects. So that's panel number 2 done. Moving on to panel number 3, I'm actually going to use a mixed media brush for this one. So if you've not got hold of one of these tools yet, I highly recommend it because it's so versatile. So as well as being able to make some glitter cardstock with it like this by just painting the embossing ink over the cardstock, it's really handy for other things, like if you've got delicate die cuts or intricate die cuts and you can just brush the embossing ink directly over the top. It's also brilliant for mixed media projects because this goes on quite thick. You can actually control the thickness, you can spread it out thinner, you can put it on in chunkier blobs, and so you can really play around with texture and dimension. So it's absolutely great for those types of projects as well. It's also brilliant for chunkier glitters like this because when it does go on a bit thicker, then it can grab hold of some of those chunkier glitter pieces as well. So all in all, it's a great tool to have. And if you didn't know, you can also re-ink your embossing ink pads with it as well. So this is the third panel almost finished. So I'm just going to tap off the excess and heat set just like with the previous 2 panels. So now we have got our 3 gorgeous, sparkly, crystally panels made. I'm going to do some die cut inlay today. So I've got a beautiful background die from Simon Says Stamp, and I'll link to it below. And I am going to die cut my panel from white cardstock, and then I'm also going to die cut the 3 glitter cardstocks that we've just made using the same panel. My plan is to use the white as the outline, but then to fill in the details of the butterflies and the flowers with the different coloured glitter cardstocks. So I'm grabbing some acetate now, because if you know me, then you know that I'm obsessed with making shaker cards. So we are eventually going to turn this into a shaker. So I'm just popping some little tiny dots of liquid glue over the reverse of the panel. And we do want to be careful here to make sure we don't put too much glue on, because obviously when we are pressing that acetate into place, we don't want the glue to squidge out and be visible from the other side. So I'm just lightly pressing that on to make sure it adheres, but it doesn't squash out everywhere. And then once it's dried, I'm trimming the spare acetate from around the edges away to just leave us with our finished card panel. So the next thing to do is the die cut inlay element of our project. And I love die cut inlay. It might not be for everyone, but for me, it's like a crafty version of doing a jigsaw puzzle. So what I'm doing again is putting tiny dots of liquid glue into the apertures on our card panel, and then I am just puzzle piecing the glitter cardstock into the right places. So you just want to make sure that the glue is covering the whole area so that you don't get any of your pieces kind of sticking out. And I'm using my gem picker tool here to help me pick up the pieces of glitter cardstock and get them in the right place without getting my fingers all sticky and making a giant mess. So that's the butterfly element done. I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the flowers, which I am filling in with my white ice colour. So popping some more teeny tiny dots all around the apertures, and then adding in all of the pieces of glitter cardstock. And one little tip that I would give you is if you've got any small containers where you can pop your die cut elements, that really helps you stay organised, and it's easier to find the right pieces that you need to pop into your kind of jigsaw puzzle. Don't do what I did and leave them on your craft mat to get stuck to the underside of your top or fall off your desk, because that definitely slows the process down. So now I'm just popping the blue ice in as the kind of berries in the middle of those flowers. And that will complete the die cut inlay portion of the project. And I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. I think those colours are absolutely stunning together. So to move on to our shaker, usually I would use foam tape strips around the edge of my shaker project, but because this is such an intricate die and the frame around the edge is so thin, what I've done is actually die cut a number of the frames in white, and I'm going to stack them up on top of each other to create dimension, and we're going to create our shaker walls in that way. So again, liquid glue is coming out. I'm going to pop that all around the edges of the front of the card panel. And then I'm also going to apply it to all of the tiny details of the die cuts that are going to go behind it. So I'm putting those on the right side of the panel, which I'm then going to flip over and adhere to the reverse of our acetate panel. So the great thing with liquid glue is that you have a little bit of wiggle room to get it in the right place, but obviously you do want to try and be as accurate as possible when working with acetate, because we don't want to get glue everywhere. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing with my other two white die cuts and stack them up. And then it's time to move on to the sentiment. So I have got an older set here. It's a Hero Arts and Altenew set called Bloom and Grow, which is absolutely lovely. And I'm just going to get the sentiment Hello Lovely and pop that on the card, because that is basically the way that I greet all of my friends. Hello Lovely. So that's very me. So I'm just grabbing my shaker panel here, and I'm lining it up over a piece of grey cardstock which I've cut down to A2 size, and I'm just using this to position my sentiment so I know exactly where I want it to go. I'm actually going to stamp it onto the grey cardstock, not onto the acetate panel, but I'm just using this purely to position where the sentiment should go. So I've picked that up with my Misty Door, and I'm going to stamp it down with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And this is a really, really great ink for stamping sentiments because it's quite crisp and it's also really lovely and dark. And I absolutely could have stamped the sentiment onto the acetate so it was right on the front of the card, but you do have to be a bit careful stamping onto acetate and make sure you're using the right ink. It is a bit of a tricky thing to do, so I did chicken out this time, decided to just stamp it onto my background panel instead. And as if there wasn't enough glitter in the beautiful trio that I've used, I've decided to add a little bit more inside the card as well. So I've used some earth sparkles and they are in the colour squid. So I've just sprinkled them onto the background panel, and now I'm gluing our shaker window over the top. And that completes the card for today. So I hope you'll hop along with the rest of the hop and have a look at the amazing inspiration from some of the other design team members. There's also a blog hop and an Instagram hop going on, so there's plenty of chances to win some prizes this month. So go and be inspired. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you really soon.